well. We mentioned this a bit earlier. If you got the time, go back on the videos on Facebook and on YouTube, because you'll hear what Carl said about goal setting last year, which also only feels like it was about 3 days ago. So he's extremely passionate about that. Emily has retweeted us our broadcast this evening. So thank you, Emily, for being with us. We are going to hear from Dr. Megan a little bit later on, and also Lee from the Community Hub. He does the community hour with us here on the last Sunday of every month, which meant that he had the New Year's Eve Sunday morning community hour. And he finished the show off with a wonderful reading about the pressures that we might be feeling going into the new year. So we're going to finish off with Lee from the Community Hub, actually. And you can catch up with him, as I say, on the last Sunday of every month with what's going on in the Community Hub. So yeah, it's a wonderful passage. So stick around for that one. That's coming up after Tammy and Dr. Megan's conversation about gut health. We're talking mindset now. We've got the resolutions, we've got the goals. We know how we're setting these goals. We know how we're monitoring these goals. And then I kind of threw a bit of a grenade in looking at, well, what about different personality types? Because I might talk about mindset from the training that I've gone through in the past, but actually that might not necessarily be the most appropriate for each individual. And I also mentioned Gretchen Rubin. I was correct. My memory served me correct. She has got a book called The 4 Tendencies, and she's also got a podcast called Happier, which she does with her sister. And it's an excellent listen. She's recently featured on the Tim Ferriss podcast. I'm a big fan of podcasts. And Business Books, Hayley. So if you find a good one, please let me know. And the 4 tendencies, there are upholders, there are questioners, there are obligers, and there are rebels, according to her research and her book in the 4 tendencies. So I wonder, I'm going to very quickly go through. Upholders meet outer and inner expectations readily. Discipline is my freedom. So a bit like Hayley, you were just talking there about your daughter. Discipline, focus. Upholders, I will do what I want to do. Questioners, they meet inner expectations, but meet outer expectations only if they make sense. If you convince me why this is good, I'll comply. So they need the rationale and they need the logic.
Yeah.
Obligers, this is the largest tendency according to her research. Meet outer expectations, but struggle to meet their own inner expectations. Therefore, they need outer accountability to meet those inner expectations. You can count on me, but I'm counting on you to count on me. So they'll more readily do it if they know people are relying on them, which often means that they don't end up doing what they want to do, that inner expectation. And then rebels, the smallest group, resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. They do what they choose to do when they choose to do it. And typically, they don't tell themselves what to do. You can't make me, and neither can I. I'm just going with the flow, baby.
I think it's brilliant. My motto is self-knowledge is a superpower. So the more you know about yourself, the better able you are to make the right decisions for you. So all these personality traits are brilliant. I just think everybody's got a different take on it, haven't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always that one person that goes with the flow.
Yeah. I'm going to do what I want. Yeah, surf's up, man. It's that kind of stereotype, isn't it? And often you find, I think, creative business leaders, the ones that, like your Richard Bransons, the ones that buck the trend, they're probably rebels. It's like, I'm going to do this, but but interestingly, you probably need in a team, you're probably grateful to have all of those personality types.
Yes. It's making sure the blend is right, isn't it? It's making sure even though you need all those personalities, some personalities don't get on, do they? Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that the communication is right. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Tammy, we were talking off air and I need to dig out the name of the personality test that I did, but I end up falling in the middle, which is great because it means that in theory, hopefully, I'm quite adaptable to different circumstances and different situations. But there's some people, that's just not how they're made. And when it comes to then shifting your mindset, maybe shifting your mindset is it possible?
There's so many different factors, and I'm not familiar with Gretchen's work, but when it comes to personalities, My go-to is Terence Watts, who talks about warriors, settlers, and nomads, and asking which tribe we come from. So I come from the point of view that you can be a particular personality, and I'm digressing, but I will come back to to answer your question. We come from, we all have a stronger personality that would be the dominant one, but in times where we're with other personalities, we can pretend to be a different one. So I think anything that kind of like that self-knowledge, as Hayley says, is invaluable, and I will go and look at Gretchen's work afterwards. When it comes down to mindset, it's difficult because you get to choose what you're doing through your thoughts. So you make the decisions, and it's essentially you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, as long as you want to. And again, as I said earlier on, our mindsets are lenses to how we view the world. So again, it all depends on what's happening at that moment. Being mindful, but knowing that our mindset can change depending on our thoughts and beliefs that are happening at that time.
And beliefs and thoughts that are happening at that time. And Hayley, you mentioned earlier about you're going to fluctuate. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. There's a great graphic that shows up on my social media feeds every now and then, and it's people think that showing up consistently is a top line on a graph all the way through, but actually some days the bar's full, some days it's low, some days it's back up again, and the point is that you still turn up every single day. And those thoughts and beliefs that Tammy's just mentioned there, on a bad day you might think that you are, I'm going to go to the extremes now, you're the worst thing ever. You're never going to achieve this goal because today I'm having a day where I'm 2%, not 90%. But that's okay. We're designed to fluctuate.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? When you understand there are patterns in our behaviors, in our habits, you start to give yourself that break. Oh, well, it's a bad day, or it's a good day, or it's just a day. And I think that's key. I'm currently listening to on YouTube audiobooks, Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's all about visualizing your goal. I'm listening to it on YouTube because it's a 10-hour book, so it must be a really thick book. So I'm listening to it on YouTube. But
so you can't do that in half a week.
No. Well, I'm about 3 hours in.
Okay.
But it really is about being so clear with yourself. And one of we've just passed the chapter, and I don't know what chapter it is, but I've just passed the chapter where it says to give yourself half an hour every day to be clear on your goals. So absolutely clear. But they've used this test on golfers, where the golfer's not touched a golf club, and you said stick then, a golf club, but they've visualized everything. They've visualized how from picking up the club to positioning themselves to hitting the ball, and they've done better by visualizing rather than doing the actual activity. Now, I find that quite fascinating. So it is something I'm going to be putting time aside, again, being intentional, putting time aside to be very clear on who I want to be, what I want to achieve. And, it could be a practice. You might start with 10 minutes a day. You work up to 15 minutes a day. It says 30 minutes a day. But if you're not used to that, then you work up to it.
Yeah. I love that. Visualization. Tammy, I alluded to vision boards and mood boards earlier. And well, to golfers, visualization is more important than practicing. And I think it's one thing that in sports, as you mentioned golf there, but cricketers, Johnny Wilkinson, very famous, and he would look where the ball's going. Owen Farrell does it as well. Dan Bigg used to do the Big Arena. The visualization is so important. Whenever I go onto a show or I go on to do a talk or something, I always think about how's this going to roughly look and feel before I go and do it. There is something about seeing it before it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a lot of my clients, we have that mental rehearsal where we actually visualize how we want things to play out. So whether that's in a sports setting or whether it's in just public speaking, for example, because it's really important to remember that our minds can't tell a difference between what's real and what's not real. So simply by replaying something over and over again in our mind is just the same as if we were doing it in the real world. So those moments where, a golfer is just going through the sequence of what he needs to do is when he's actually there or she's there in that moment. They've done that so many times before, albeit in their minds, but they've done it many times before. So it's so powerful, so powerful.
It's quite incredible. And then I suppose the key thing then is, right, the golfer, they spent all that time physically practicing it. They spent all that time visualizing it. And it doesn't have to be golf. It could be anything. No. We're using golf now as our metaphor now because we've latched onto it. But then imagine now they've gone through all this process and they swing and they top it into the grass. It's like, that's embarrassing. Hayley, it's the worst thing in the world. You've gone through all that practice and you've topped it into the grass. What are you going to do about it?
Learn from it. It's the best thing you can do. Is what people tend to do is they punish themselves, they judge themselves, they criticize themselves. But if you start to go from the attitude and the perception of, what did I not do that made me hit that foul ball? What did I do that made me hit that foul ball? What would I do better next time? And we're not really socialized to do that kind of reflection. And when you reflect, it really does allow you to do better next time.
Mm-hmm. Tammy, when we do something incorrectly, it's just a case of or maybe we were going to do less of something, or we're going to do more of something, and then we slip into so like it's typical now to quit smoking, and you pick one up and you have one, you've broken it. I might as well throw the whole thing away. We don't have to, do we?
No, not at all. Not at all. We just start again. It's the fact that we actually have made the decision to stop. Yes, and there will be bumps along the way, and it's okay to have those wobbles. The important thing is how quickly that you get back into that logical thinking again, and come up with that positive assessment that yes, you might have just in that split second had that cigarette after not having one for a few weeks, but you know that you can achieve it. You've done it for 2 weeks before. Let's start again. Tomorrow can be day one. And again, it's almost giving that permission. Again, we come back to that full circle with what Hayley said. It's permission to say it's okay. We can start again, and to move forward. Identifying your goals, and just being clear on them. But it's okay to hit those speed bumps.
And if you are tracking them and you're having these monthly milestone meetings and you're coming together in a non-judgmental way, if you've kept track of it and you're like, I didn't have one for 14 days, I had one, I broke the chain, I'm going to start again. At least now you know what the benchmark is. Right, can I go to 15? Once I get to 15, where can I go then? And in a way, this might not work for everyone, but you kind of gamify it then as well, because now you're setting a standard, and that's okay too. You don't have to take it really seriously.
But you're setting it. It's not someone saying you should set. And we come back to that kind of like the power of language. You're making a decision for you. So going on that basis, you're more likely to achieve moving forward.
Yeah. And Hayley, bringing us all the way back to when we first started the show this evening, you mentioned about setting your direction. And if you're worried about slipping off your habits, maybe you broke your promise to yourself, you're not reaching your goals at these little landmarks that you've set. We've already described that we can change and adapt to what's going on. Helen Marie said that. She's like, I'm not setting goals till reality sets back in, till routine's back in. So I'll try and mold in with what I'm trying to achieve. But ultimately with a goal, there's an outcome at the end of it. We know what the destination is. And if your mindset is, I take the days as they come because I know that on the horizon is what I'm aiming for. That is the greatest steer of your mindset, isn't it?
It can be, and I think sometimes people assume that the goal is wrong if they're not achieving, but actually you might be on the wrong path. And someone said this to me last year, and I had a bit of an eye-opener actually, because things weren't working out as I wanted them to. And she said, my goal is completely clear of what I want to achieve in my business. And she said, you might be on the wrong train. And I was like, oh, so even though you maybe, so let's say you are taking the right action, you have the right resources, and it's still not going the right way, then maybe you're not going in the right path, you're not on the right path at that time. You might need to swerve off that path, do something different, and you may rejoin that path at some time, or you might just forge that new path, and that's the way to your goal. So it really is about looking at it from all angles. Is it the goal? Is it my actions? Is it the resources? Am I on the right path? And all those things, again, it's reflective, isn't it? It's making sure that you understand what's right for you.
Yeah. And that comes down to who we are and what we want to be, what we want to achieve, and are we in line with our values, which we've definitely covered in previous shows here on Healthy Minds. And the fortunate thing is that we do record them on our social media. So if you're thinking, you can listen back to the last couple of shows, I think back to September, October at purewestradio.com/catch-up. You can search Healthy Minds on YouTube, and you'll find every single segment that we've ever done on Healthy Minds and find out whether or not we can support you through the airwaves, which is quite wonderful and a bit overwhelming now I've said it out loud. But yes, you can do that with a mixture of all the experiences and other guest speakers that we've had. Talking of which, we've got Dr. Megan coming on next. She caught up with Tammy about gut health. All that's left for me to say is have a healthy 2024 as best as you can, and if you are setting goals and setting challenges for yourself, push yourself but go easy on yourself. I love that paradox, because that's what life is when it comes to who we are as individuals. Do your best but don't beat yourself up, and I think that's really clear. Tammy, Hayley, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to hear from Lee towards the end. We've got Dr. Megan on the way. We will meet again. Let's get my calendar out in February. Let's have a quick look on the 8th of February.
Wow.
We'll be here. If there's anything that you want us to cover, then please get in touch. Email studio@purewestradio.com and give us a message. We're going to have a bit of Smash Mouth and All Star, because we're all stars, regardless of what day it is, whether it's a good day or a bad day, we still are. And we're going to be hearing from Dr. Megan very shortly. It's 10:30 on the dot here. Tammy and Hayley, thank you so much. Let's have a great 2024 together with healthy and better lives.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Somebody once told me the world